Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to have a bit of a different pace than the regular videos. I want to share a couple of stories with you from my healing journey. Now I want to give you a warning first of all. Some of these are a bit delicate, a bit sensitive. So there are some trigger warnings, there's a lot of suffering, there are some themes around suicidal ideations. There's a lot of pain in my healing journey. I suffered a lot. And if you're feeling like a little bit sensitive, probably don't watch the video right now. There is going to be a lot of healing insight in this. I really want to try and give you a snapshot of what my healing journey has been like by sharing some of my crazier stories. And yeah, it's just a bit sensitive. So if you're feeling a bit squeamish or you're feeling a little bit of a flower today, don't watch the video. But otherwise, this is going to be really fun. It's going to be nice because I'm going to get to share a little bit about my experience, and you're going to hopefully relate a little bit to my situation. There's probably some things in here you might be able to relate to on some level. So some of these are good stories, some of these are bad stories. And we're going to start off with a good one. So, this is the story of the first time I ever did a coffee enema. So, for those of you that don't know, a coffee enema is a procedure where you insert coffee into your rectum and you hold it for 15 minutes. The thought process behind doing this is that it stimulates detoxification in the liver, it triggers a bile release, and it allows the body to basically detox itself. It's especially powerful for the liver and helps the liver with detoxification. I wasn't sure how true this was, but I was reading the GAPS book Diet by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. She is, I believe, a certified neurologist. I believe she worked with some things in the brain and a nutritionist. Her son developed autism, and she realized that as a neurologist, and autism being like a neural sensory processing disorder, she actually had no tools to help her kid at all. So she studied nutrition, found a solution, reversed the autism. Great, amazing. So anyway, I was reading her book, and it is really a good book. If you haven't read the GAPS diet book, definitely read it. Even if you don't do the GAPS diet, I personally don't follow the GAPS diet anymore, and it's still a solid foundation of information. Everything that I learned was built on top of reading the GAPS book, basically. Very good book. So anyway, I was reading the book, and there was a part where she was talking about doing enemas. I suffered with very severe constipation to the point where, like, I could go 7 or 10 days without a bowel movement, severely constipated. Then I would have a bowel movement, and it would just be this hemorrhoids, bloody mess. Like I said, it's going to be graphic, but this was like, I would literally have PTSD. Every time I felt a bowel movement coming, I was like, "Oh no!" I would start to like sweat, and I would be scared because it would hurt so much. And like you look in the toilet bowl, and you just see it full of blood, and you're just like, "Fuck, I'm gonna die. This is it. I'm dying. This is it. This is it." You know, and you go to the doctors, and then they don't help you, and it's really really scary. So I was learning about how being constipated causes the body to accumulate toxicity, and at this stage, I'm sort of developing chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. I'm like, yeah, I kind of probably should do something about this. So to set the scene, I've decided this is something that I'm going to do, and obviously, like this is the first time I'm shoving something up my ass. I've done it 1,000 times since then. I've put lots of things in my ass in the name of healing, but this was basically my first time, and my baseline experience was I was in about a 7 or an 8 out of 10, kind of like chronic pain, fibromyalgia like experience. So like the top of my shoulders were always burning. My legs, like down to my knee and like in my hips and my pelvis were just they just always they hurt. And I can't really describe it. It's like a very deep bone ache. They just hurt all the time. Even doing something like standing in front of the sink and washing the dishes, my calves would be on fire. And even just going for like a small 5 or 10 minute walk, I would have fatigue and like muscle soreness for like a week after doing that. So my body at this stage was struggling a lot. And my baseline experience of life was just pain. I was just in pain all the time. So I did the coffee enema procedure. And at first I was like, this is why am I putting coffee? Why am I doing this? What? And it was like a bit of, the first time it was like, okay, this is really odd. Why am I doing this? But I can remember within about 3 or 5 minutes of holding the coffee, this just like wave of peace just flooded over my body. And that pain that I'd been experiencing, this just horrid fatigue, and alongside this, and I wasn't really even aware of it at the time, this just veil of like depression and anxiety that I was living in, this all just reduced to like a 2 out of 10 for the first time in months. And it was like, I was almost like a bit shocked, like, whoa. And then I went to the toilet and I expelled the rest of the fluid. And within about 15 minutes of finishing the full procedure, my full body pain went down to a zero point 0.5 out of 10 for the first time in months. And at that point, I was like, okay, we've found something here. I don't 100% like believe it, or like I don't understand the science, but this did something. This worked. I felt this. And from that day, I continued to do coffee enemas fairly regularly. I think that on average, I did once every 3 days. I must have accumulated over 1,000 coffee enemas in my healing journey. I currently do not do coffee enemas anymore. Whilst they are amazing for relieving this fatigue and this kind of fibromyalgia thing, they can deplete the body quite a lot. You're up-regulating a lot of detoxification processes. And I've found that continuing to do the coffee enemas is depleting my body faster than I can replenish it. So right now, I'm more focused on the nutritional side of things, and maybe one day I'll do them again. But overall, from where I'm sitting right now, I can't complain. My life now compared to then, completely different. I'm not living in chronic pain, this like chronic fibromyalgia. I have nothing like that. It's completely different. But coffee enemas, incredible tool. Not a miracle solution to everything, but a very useful tool for facilitating a certain correction of a dysfunction that could be happening. Next, I want to share a little story about what I refer to as the dark days. So, this was the darkest period, quite literally, but also emotionally. This was the most difficult period of my healing process. And I call it the dark days because due to this fatigue and histamine issues and all of these things, I was basically rendered blind. So, although I could see, like my vision worked, I could open my eyes, I could see everything around me. Using my eyes, the muscles that my body used to move and to coordinate the eyes, they had so much fatigue, they had so much pain that it was unsustainable. I couldn't use my eyes for more than about 30 minutes spread throughout the day. So I would basically spend 23 and a half hours a day laying in my bed with my eyes closed. Initially, I started with like a hat just rolled down over my head like this. And eventually I got one of those masks that you use like to sleep to make it dark, or you get on an aeroplane, and I would use that, and I would just use this the whole day. I would use this all the time. The only time that I would actually use my eyes was basically to navigate to get to the toilet, to the washroom, or to like do my enema procedure or something like this, as I mentioned in the last point, or to basically eat. Like I didn't have enough like time to be able to like cook for myself or prepare anything at this stage. Just to give you some context, so because of these coffee enemas and doing some of this detox stuff, I was able to walk a little bit more, but I had a little bit more capacity in the rest of my body than I did in my eyes. So my dad would literally take me for a walk on a dog lead. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but we would literally walk along the road down to the park, and he would either like be holding my arm, or if we were on a place where it was a little bit more stable, I would literally be holding a dog lead and he'd be holding the other end, and he would lead me around a field or up the road so that I could try to get some exercise in, because even with chronic fatigue syndrome, exercise is important. You have to work with the capacity that you have. This would like, can you imagine how crazy this was? We'd be walking down the road and people would be like talking to us, like, "What's wrong with him? Like, why are you doing that?" Like, it's so awkward. It was so uncomfortable. Try walking even for like 10 meters with your eyes closed. It is terrifying. It is really scary. You don't know if you're going to trip. You don't know if you're going to fall. I also at one stage tried using a blind cane, so the little cane that you use to like navigate, you see blind people using, but it was made of metal. It was so heavy, my arm just wasn't strong enough. I couldn't even do it. And it got to the point where I wasn't comfortable to go out by myself because I'd be so stressed. I'd just be clenching and holding all these muscles tight. So even though I was out of the house and my eyes were closed, I'd still accumulate the same amount of stress as if I was just using my eyes. So the best option was my dad leading me around on a dog lead. I know that sounds absolutely insane, but that is what it is. So this was approximately 6 months to a year, the period of time that we did this. And the majority of my day was spent laying in bed, listening either like to the radio or to audiobooks. And very often what my dad would do is, because we were trying to figure this out and the doctors weren't really being very much help, I was like the brains of the operation. I was the one that was going to figure all of this out. So I would ask my dad to look for something on the internet, like a Google scholarly article or like a YouTube video or something. And if you'd put a YouTube video, then I could listen to it. if he would find like a Google Scholarly article, he would copy the text of the article and put it in the text to speech program, and it would basically speak it to me in this robotic voice. I must have listened to like at least 5,000 hours of this robotic voice just telling me about Akkermansia, Fecalibacteria, Bifidobacterium, detoxification, all these different things that I would just listen to and hours and hours. And I'm laying there, I'm blind, I've got this mask over my head, I've got pain in my body, my gut is just a mess. It, life was it was very dark. Like I had suicidal depression every single day during this period. I actually at one point planned to end my life. This wasn't like a flippant kind of, oh, I just want to commit suicide. Oh, I'm like flirting with the idea of it. It was like, okay, I got my calendar in my, I had an old Android phone, a little HTC, and in the calendar app, every day that I wanted to commit suicide, I would put an X. And I told myself if I could get to 12, no, to 14 X's in a row, so 2 weeks, where every single day I decided that today was not worth living because of the pain, because of the lack of progress, because of the misery of my experience. If I could get to 14 days in a row, I would kill myself. I could never get to 14. The maximum I'd ever get was 12. Sometimes I would have like 5 days and then I'd be like, okay, today was worth it. I feel like there's some hope. I might be able to find a way out. But for, again, 6 months to a year, it's very hard to track time when you're in a place like this. I didn't care about what was happening in the world. I have no idea what happened in politics. I did not care. I was literally fighting for my life at this stage. So I say 6 months to a year, and you might think, really, there's a lot of it all blurred into one. All I remember is this just smudge of misery in my past. It's very hard to give you like an exact date. So the thing that changed this, the thing that kind of gave me my vision back, the thing that allowed me to start functioning a little bit more was I was continuing to work on these things. I was doing coffee enemas. I was working on methylation as much as I could. I was taking probiotics consistently. You know how big I am on probiotics, and that's because they work. And I have the evidence because here I am. But the thing that changed it was I went to a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and she did acupuncture on my face. She put some needles here, here, in the sides, here. But in the sides, it was only very, very shallow, like maybe this deep, and then some on the front. And this provided some relief. And I can remember I was able to use my eyes for like an hour and a half a day instead of just 30 minutes. And it was like, wow, when you go from only 30 minutes of functionality in a day to an hour and a half, I could do so much. I could start to cook some things for me. I was doing broth for myself. I was taking more command over making my food. I could use my eyes to research a little bit. So like I read the GAPS book over again. I've kind of mentioned the GAPS book in the last point, and I started being able to read some resources. I still had to budget, and if I went over the budget, how it is with chronic fatigue syndrome, if you go over the budget, then you pay that budget back with severe interest over the next 5 days. So if I went over my roughly 90 minutes, let's say for some reason I went for 2 hours or 2 hours and a half, for the next days, I would be back to 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And even with my eyes closed, the pain would be there and it would be banging, horrible pain, like stabbing pains in my eyes, awful. So there was a very strong incentive to not push past that limit because the consequences were just devastating. They were terrible. It was never worth it. So this provided some relief. I then went to a chiropractor that I was working with and I told him about this. And I can actually remember there was a point in the back of my neck here in the suboccipital region. I believe it was GB18. Anyone that's watching the video that knows more about acupuncture, let me know. Do you have a GB18? So this is gallbladder 18 point in the suboccipital region in the back of your head, somewhere around here. I can remember he put the needle in and my neck did, I'll try to give you a visual representation. My neck did this big, massive contraction. There was a huge trigger point and it just released. And since then, I gained even more vision back, and I was up to maybe 2.5 hours a day. And I'm not suggesting that you should do this, but like I said, I've done some crazy things in my healing journey. I started to do acupuncture myself. So I couldn't afford to go and see this traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. It was £25 for a session. This was already a discounted rate, but I was on disability benefits at this time. I didn't have the resources. I couldn't afford to do it. So I thought, well, I can just buy acupuncture needles. She's not doing anything I couldn't do. And I thought, yeah, maybe there's like some more science to it. She's trained a lot. I was like, yeah, but I can stick needles in my face. The thing that I was always afraid of was, what if I poke myself in the brain? If I poke myself in the brain, I'm probably going to die. But I looked at an anatomy map. I saw that the skull is like an enclosed structure. Unless you're trying to, or you're like poking yourself through the eye or like in your ear canal, it's very hard to poke yourself in the brain. It's actually very difficult. The skull is designed to protect that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to do it. And for me, the thing that made the most difference was doing the needles here and pushing them as deep as I could and then kind of twiddling them, moving them around. And also here, this side part of my temple here. And you'll notice I actually have a little mark. Maybe you'll be able to see. I have a little mark here. This is an acupuncture scar from doing it many times. I think it's on that side. Maybe it's on this side. I don't know. I can't really see because I'm not wearing my glasses. So I would do it here and I would put the needle in all the way. So like this deep. And I'm not saying that this was a smart thing to do, and I'm not saying that you should do this, but I put the needle in all the way till it hit the bone. This was the moment where everything changed. After I did this, I could see again. I had full ability to basically be myself again. I wasn't limited by my vision. I did have to do this every single night. So I did needles here and here and here. I did this every single night for probably about 3 years. Every single night. If I missed even one day, I would feel it the next day and I would have to stop my day and do this. So again, I'm not saying it was a smart thing, but it worked. So I just did what it took. And it worked. And here I am. I have needles. I have some acupuncture needles in the other room. I use them very sparingly. I don't need to do them anymore. Maybe partly because I can use glasses now. Before I tried to use glasses, my eyes just simply could not adapt. They were already in such a stress state. Trying to make them adapt to glasses, impossible. Could not tolerate them. Horrible headaches, simply did not work. So I've got two more stories for you. I want to try and go through these a little bit more quickly, but there's just so much detail to share about these things. So this next story was slightly more towards the beginning of my healing journey. So when I started to experience some health problems, I tried to go vegan. Now, I'm not saying that I did this very well because I didn't. My vegan diet was probably the worst vegan diet that you could possibly do. I generally don't advocate for a vegan diet because I find it makes healing very hard and I think it misses a lot of nutritional elements. But even within that, there is a right way to do a vegan diet and the wrong way. And I personally did the wrong way. I did the worst. I was basically eating mashed potatoes, a bunch of like processed food-like products that were vegan, and yeah, I wasn't doing a very good job. But basically, I believe this resulted in a very severe B12 deficiency. I can remember I went to the emergency room. I'm sure if you're watching this, probably with the health problems that you're facing, you've probably been to the emergency room as well. I was having this extremely fast heart rate. And obviously, when I went there, they checked it all out. They're like, "You're fine. You're having a panic attack. Nothing's wrong." They tested my B12. My B12 was in range, so they it was completely unhelpful. And I can remember we left, and I was like, "What am I going to do now?" And while I was going through this, I think I had the GAPS book at this time. I was still vegan, but I was reading the GAPS book. Maybe I did some research on the internet. I can't remember exactly. I remembered hearing about B12, and I was like, "Okay, I know the highest source of B12 is liver." So picture this. I've been vegan for about 6 or 9 months. Again, I know it's not exactly accurate. The whole thing's a blur. Too much pain and suffering kind of blocked it out. 6 months, 9 months, I'm vegan. And I'm like, okay, I think I have acknowledged that I have to eat an animal product. I think this is the only way that I can make this heart palpitations, this anxiety. I think this is the only way I can make this go away. And in my head, the struggle that I was having was, why does an animal have to die for me to live? And this was like a very big battle that I was having in my own mind. Like, why do I have to kill something to be alive? And there was a lot of pain in this, and this was a very hard thing to work through. I actually have an article on my website that you could take a look that kind of provides all of the points that I used to work myself through this mindset shift called Veganism is Not the Answer. So you could search on Google, Veganism is Not the Answer, William Dickinson. I wrote this after working through this transition off of veganism. So you might find that interesting. There's very good arguments against veganism. But basically, I can remember we went to Tesco's. So I was with my dad. He took me to the emergency room. They're like, "You're all fine." And then I come out of the emergency room, like, I still don't feel good. Like, they've said I'm fine, but I know something's not right. And he was like, "So what do you want to do?" So I said, "Let's go to Tesco. I'm going to buy some pork liver pate and I'm going to eat my first animal product in 6 or 9 months. So we go to Tesco, I find the pork pate, I buy it, get to the car, I open it, smells disgusting. I don't like organ meat. Even now, I like pate on toast, but I don't like the smell. And I can remember I scooped it out with my finger. So I literally scooped it with my finger, put it in my mouth. And the second that it hit my mouth, my body that was just, it felt like it was in this state, like trying to just not have a panic attack, just hovering in, I'm going to have a panic attack, but I'm not having it yet, but it's here. It just went, it just let go. As soon as it hit my mouth. And then I remember eating half of the pack and the journey home, I was just calm. And I was like, there's something in this. This is a part of the healing process. There is something here. And I need to figure out what it is. And retrospectively, I'm sure it was the B12. But now, probably you've seen my videos. I orient a lot towards animal-based nutrition, and this experience is one of those reasons. It's really showed me how important it is that we have animal foods in the diet. Final story that I have for you today is the story of my kidney stone. So I've actually had a few kidney stones, but this one was the biggest. So, just for context, if you have a kidney stone, if it's less than 5 millimeters, basically all the doctors will do for you is they will give you painkillers and they'll tell you to drink more water. They'll tell you that you should be able to pass this stone by itself. I've had 2 stones that have been 5 millimeters and they are horrible. They I can remember when I went into the hospital and the pain was so severe. I can remember they shot me up with like a really high dose of morphine and it didn't even touch it. And I was just screaming like, ah, and when I know this is one reason I have a lot of empathy for nurses is when somebody's in a lot of pain, all of their respect, all of their patience goes out of the window. When I'm in pain, I'm an asshole. I am not a nice person. And I think that's kind of, there's a lot of humility in that. It kind of really brings you down to show you like no one's bigger than pain. You can do all of the spiritual work, you can do the shadow work, put 11 out of 10, put yourself in pain that exceeds your threshold to tolerate pain, you will become an asshole quicker than you could believe because it's intolerable. So I can remember I was in the emergency room and I don't know, the nurse is asking me some questions, and I'm like, I am dying, please, painkillers, like morphine, more, give me more. And well, it wasn't being very nice, but again, that's what pain will do to you. And then I can remember finally they gave me the high enough dose, and all of this pain. I'm just rigid. I'm just like it feels like rigor mortis, like I feel like I'm about to die. I'm in so much pain, and then all of a sudden it's just oh, the morphine really kicks in, and it for me it feels like you're being wrapped in like cotton wool. You're being consumed by a cloud. You're being cuddled by God Himself, and it's just like ah. And they just dosed me up on loads and loads of painkillers, made me drink loads and loads of water until I weed it out. But the big one that I wanted to tell you about is so that happened with two. The big one that I had was a 1.6 centimeter stone. So this is 3 times larger than the maximum size that they'll allow you to just urinate out. Because of this, and this kidney stone was actually in my kidney still. It didn't mobilize, it didn't move. So it wasn't actually causing me pain, but it was a big problem in this kidney stone being here because it affects kidney function. And what I started to notice was occasionally I would start to get like blood in my urine. And especially if I did something like a cold therapy. Now I was never really into like cold showers. My body never really agreed with it. But when I moved to Portugal, I would go and jump in the ocean because like it's amazing. Why would you not want to go in the ocean? It's so cool. But it was really cold. And this causes the blood vessels and it causes the organs to contract. And my kidney would basically squeeze around this really big stone. And then I would come out of the ocean, go to the toilet, and I'd just be urinating just this like red stream of just like bright red blood. And this was really scary, as you could probably imagine. There's a lot of scary stuff and a lot of blood exiting my body through the holes the blood should not be coming out of. So it really shows you that, again, like I said, I've suffered a lot. I've been through a lot of hard things. Healing is, it's been a very, very hard journey. But again, hopefully that's why I'm able to produce such helpful informational videos that help you out. So again, if you are appreciating this and you've got value out of my videos, I would really love if you would leave me a little comment. Just say, I'm enjoying the video. I'm connecting with your story. Share if you have any stories that are similar. Connect with me on this because I suffered so much to get this information to help you out. So make it so that my suffering was worth it. So to get this stone out, they would have to do surgery. They said that it's possible that they would have to do a keyhole surgery, which is where they open your back up where your kidney is, and they cut into your kidney, and then they remove the stone. But instead, the option that they chose was something called a laser uteroscopy. So again, I hope you're ready for things to get graphic. So basically, what they did was they got a camera and they shoved it up my penis. They shoved it all the way up my penis into my bladder, and then all the way through the tube that connects the bladder to the kidney. And it's a small thing, but it's my penis. You're not supposed to put things in there. This is not right. This goes against nature. It's not nice. So they shoved this thing all the way through into my kidney, and then they find the stone and they basically shoot it with a laser. So they're like they blast it into these tiny little chunks that are much, much smaller and are able to pass very easily. The procedure itself was actually completely fine. I was sedated under a general anesthetic, so I was completely asleep, didn't feel anything. But one thing that they did do is they put a stent in that tube that connects the bladder to the kidney. And a stent is it's basically like a straw. They're kind of artificially inflating this tube so that all of this sediment of these stones can be flushed through the tube and can leave the body in the urine. And for me, this was the worst part. So having the stent in was extremely painful. I remember reading the pamphlet thing that they gave you afterwards. It was like, you have a stent in your right kidney. You can work out, just don't lift anything too heavy. Make sure that you're drinking a lot. Don't drink alcohol, but you can go for walks. You can do this, you can do that. For me, having this stent in was agony. It hurt so much to the point where, so just for context as well, at this point, I'm orally intolerant to all medications and I'm eating 5 foods. So for me to take painkillers right now, what I'm doing is I'm getting them, I'm putting them in a bowl, I'm crushing them up, I'm dissolving them in a liquid, and I'm shoving them up my arse. I'm sticking them in through an enema. And I'm absorbing it through my colon because if I were to take these things orally, it would cause like histamine intolerance, mast cell activation syndrome reactions, severe abdominal discomfort. It would shut my motility down. So every time I have pain, I actually have to crush the medicine up and shove it up my arse. So I'm doing this 4 times a day. I'm waking up in the middle of the night. They literally gave me tramadol, which is basically morphine. It's a morphine-like painkiller type thing. I'm literally getting up in the middle of the night. I'm waking my wife up. She's laying next to me. I'm waking her up. She goes downstairs to make this preparation, and I'm shoving it in my arse in the middle of the night because I'm in so much pain. And then what I realized, the thing that stopped the pain was I realized if I just didn't move, I didn't really have any pain. So it got to the point where, as long as I literally just stayed in bed, all I would do was go to bed and go to the toilet. Stay in bed, go to the toilet. If I did anything more than that, the pain was severe. But when I stayed completely still, I basically didn't have any pain. And I didn't even need to take the painkillers. So I don't know if it was inserted incorrectly but I had to do that for a week. That was horrible. That was one of the worst weeks of my whole life. And then they have to remove it. And I'm not going to elaborate on what that's like because I'm sure you can probably imagine. And it was not pleasant. So I'll just leave you with that picture in your mind, someone pulling a straw through my penis. Nice. So that was story time. These were just 4 stories. I probably have about 20 stories at the same kind of like magnitude, the same kind of intensity as this story that I've shared today. If you want me to do another video where I share some more of these stories with you, or maybe go into a little bit more detail about some of these kind of situations or circumstances in my healing journey, please let me know. And if you've watched all the way to the end, you are a very brave person because I just told you some very traumatic shit. That was I went to hell and back. And you just went there with me. You went back and you experienced all of that with me. If you can in any way relate to any of these stories, I'm really sorry for what you're going through because these were some of the hardest experiences that I've ever had, not just in my healing journey, but in my whole life. And if you can even remotely relate, I'm really sorry you have to be going through such a difficult thing. But if you did watch all the way to the end, I would love it if you would leave me 3 hearts as a comment. Whatever colored heart is your favorite. Mine's purple. I love the purple hearts. So I'm going to leave 3 purple hearts below. But if you watched all the way to the end, please leave me three purple hearts. And if any of these stories resonated with you, I would really love to hear from you. So that's all from me today. Let me know if you want a part two, and then maybe a part three and a part four. But I hope you found it really interesting, and hopefully you've got some insight, you found something helpful in that video as well. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.